To callers this morning on First Coast Connect, what's your reaction to the new state law banning texting while driving? It goes into effect tomorrow. Do you approve? Do you think it's an intrusion, or do you think the law maybe doesn't even go far enough? Give us a call. 549-2937. That's 549-2937. Send your emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets, don't text them while you're driving, to @MelissaInJax. You can also comment on our First Coast Connect Facebook page. Wayne Hogan, your firm conducts awareness campaigns about this for both young people and adults. Your reaction to the new law?
Well, it's a long time in coming, and later than it should have been. Florida is beginning to catch up. But this is a beginning first step, maybe even a baby step. It's a minimal fine. It's a secondary offense. They have to be stopped for something else. So the legislature needs to do more than this, but at least a parent will be able to say to their teenager, it's not legal. It's illegal for you to be driving and texting. And so that's a step. And from the standpoint of someone reminding others, no, what you're doing or what you're thinking about doing is now illegal in Florida, and you can receive a fine for that. That's a step, but it is long awaited and is not a big enough step, because we really need to take action to prevent not just texting and driving, but also the other distractions that these mobile devices have produced.
You think the law should have even stricter specifics?
To.
Well, Randy Wise, alongside Terrell Hogan, who's doing public awareness on this, the Jacksonville Association of Firefighters has been taking a smashed-up car all around town to local high schools to drive this message home to teens. How dangerous this is.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good reaction from it. We, again, use the social media aspects to let them know where it is, and we're actually going to be at a Loretta Road Elementary School. Now, some people have said, why an elementary school? You know, I think as years have gone by, either myself and Mr. Hogan were talking earlier about seat belts. That, it takes a long time for that stuff to develop. Well, we're also thinking that if you can get, I see elementary school kids with cell phones now. So, starting early, we think if we can, get a message to them about how dangerous it can actually be, and maybe they get their mom and dad to, hey, I saw the car was at the school today and it was bad. Maybe you ought not do that. So we're, again, just trying to get it out as much as we can.
And as you mentioned, it took a long time for Americans to sort of accept the practice of buckling up with a seatbelt. Do you see this as being similar, Wayne?
It is. There are incremental steps that have taken, and the same is true with driving under the influence, alcohol and drugs. A long time ago, there was a loose legal structure with regard to that, and as time has gone, the law has caught up and has made it clear about the safety and dangers that are there. And so with alcohol and driving, an increase in the restriction, with safety belts, something to keep you from flying out of the car in the event of a crash, those kinds of things. At first it was the lap belt. Then now it is a primary offense, and the officer can see whether the person has the strap at their shoulder and can pull them over for that. So the same sort of change will probably happen here. It needs to be something that makes the point that the driver's job is a singular job, and that is driving the car safely, and avoid being distracted by these communication devices that have drifted into our lives.
And if you're just joining the program, Florida's new law banning texting behind the wheel goes into effect tomorrow. If you're caught texting behind the wheel, you'll be fined about $30. You have to be pulled over for something else first, though. We'll go to your calls about this in just a moment at 549-2937. Randy Wise, do you agree with Wayne Hogan? Do you think eventually that Florida might see an even tougher law about this? It's only a secondary offense right now, or beginning tomorrow, if you're caught texting while your car's moving along.
Sure. I think it's, as seat belts and as Mr. Hogan uses with drinking and driving, it's incrementally you just make it worse, and hopefully at some point it'll get to where people will really get their attention. My mom has always told me that when I was a kid, she'd pick me up from the floorboard many times from slamming on brakes, and nowadays it's almost unheard of. Wait, you don't have your seatbelt on, you need to put it on. So it's just frustrating that it takes that long sometimes for that kind of thing to have an impact. But hopefully it'll. And as we've been going through started this campaign, and the law starts tomorrow, I have intentionally started looking as I go down the road, and it is a big problem. I mean, about every other car that you come across, somebody's either on the phone looking at it. So, firefighters every day respond to these kind of wrecks where there has been a problem with, either distracted driving. I personally have had one, and
and you cut people out of those mangled up cars.
Absolutely. And it's, my experience was I literally could hear the person on the other, on the phone laying in the car somewhere. The guy was saying, "Where are you at?" And the guy was deceased in the car. So it can be very impactful to us.
Now, we do need to point out, this law doesn't ban using your phone to call someone while you're driving. Texting is illegal, not calling, correct?
That's correct. And perhaps that's because the statistics have shown that texting and driving you're 23 times more likely to have an accident than an unimpaired, undistracted driver. But the truth of the matter is the cell phone call itself distracts the brain and has it's approximately the same as being intoxicated or being at the DUI level. So all of those things produce potential safety risks. One thing about this that people should know, because even though we talk about this statute as being a minimal step, in many states, texting has been viewed by prosecutors as reckless driving, and if it causes a death, there have been prosecutions for manslaughter as a result of a person texting and driving that causes death. And so while this statute is just about a traffic ticket, this is about people losing their lives and people going to jail as a result of texting and driving and causing a death.
And we actually have a map on our website, WJCTnews.org. You can compare Florida's new law to the rest of the 50 states and see where we stack up when it comes to how we view texting behind the wheel. In the meantime, lots of calls, 549-2937 to join the show this morning. Let's begin with Julie in St. John's. Hi, Julie. Good morning.
Good morning. I fully approve of the no texting while driving law, but I do have a question. Sometimes I ask my passenger to send a text for me while I'm driving, and I had heard that if someone is in an accident, that their phone records can automatically be pulled for use as evidence. And I wonder what happens if I'm not the one texting, I'm driving, but I ask someone else to use my phone, and then I'm in some kind of an accident.
Thanks for that question, Julie.
As in all cases, evidence comes into play, and so that would be related to the testimony of yourself and your passenger. You've done a good thing in the sense of deputizing your passenger to handle your communications when you're in the call. That's a smart thing to do, and it would be a function of the testimony that would occur, assuming there was an accident and that it was felt that you were at fault for the accident.
And I would guess Wayne would advise you to err on the safe side and just don't use the phone when you're in motion.
Well, that's true, but your passenger can do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
They can communicate, or they could use their own phone for those purposes as well.
Let's go to John on the north side this morning. Hi, John. Good morning.
Good morning. My call is more in the line of a legal aspect as well as the previous caller. The enforceability of that, it seems that, and I am for the law, by the way, but it seems that we add more laws to the book, which the action of using the cell phone will contribute to something that will already be covered, reckless driving, et cetera. So mine is from this. My question is particularly the enforceability.
How will this be enforced? Yeah, John, thanks for that question. And Randy, Wayne, it's my understanding, say you're pulled over for speeding, some kind of moving violation. If the officer sees that you've got your phone out and you're using it, then they can cite you for this, correct?
I would defer to the learned counselor over there.
Isn't that right, though?
I think that's the way that it will work. I mean, there are, as with any new law, there are going to be practicalities that come into play, and there are going to be questions that arise. Definitely, if there is a personal injury or wrongful death, and the accident gets investigated, then those cell phone records, mobile phone records are going to be pulled. They're going to be looked at. People may not be aware that for years and years, the standard accident report form that the police officer fills out dealt with whether the driver that was thought to be at fault was under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Now, the standard accident report form requires the officer to include his view as to whether the person was distracted, and the way in which the person was distracted, whether it was a mobile device, whether they were texting, whether they were on the phone. So all of those things get investigated if there's an accident.
And Tamara tweets the show, plenty of research demonstrates attention can't be split between tasks effectively, regardless of the medium.
I guess the question would be, can the officer actually reach in there, get your phone, and go, hey, I don't know that. I know it's new, but
sure.
At what point do they actually? How can they prove that?
I doubt that, and it's unlikely that they're going to do that in a situation where a person is over the speed limit or is careless driving. But if there's the phone, and whether the person has gone through the mental gymnastics of turning the phone off, putting it some other place, all of those kinds of things, an officer is already used to looking for the question of whether a person's making what we call furtive actions, because it might be a handgun that somebody has in their car or some other situation like that.
And Martha emails the show, how will the police know if someone was texting and driving? Will they ask the drivers, let me see your cell phone? I am supportive of the law, but I think there are privacy issues involved. So lots of questions about how this is going to come about. Here's another email. I don't mind this law even though I'm a libertarian. One less thing for me to worry about when my son is out and about. He has a strong dislike of paying tickets. Let's go to the phones. Paul in Orange Park. Go ahead, Paul.
Good morning. Great topic. I was a professional truck driver, commercial truck driver for 13 years. And from that vantage point, you can see what a lot of people are doing in their cars, and a lot of people are being distracted by texting, looking at the smartphone apps, their laptop, their tablet, whatever it is, even the radio. So I'm strongly in favor of the law. It is extremely dangerous. As a commercial driver, I realized and had it drilled into my head every year that 1 second of inattention, just 1 second, can be the cause of a major accident. And I applaud the state for having the courage to take that next step, because people need to feel some pain before they're going to change their behavior. It's just that simple.
Thank you for the call, Paul. It's my understanding as well that the governor, while the law was approved, the governor did veto some money that was put in the budget to get the word out about this. So organizations like yours now, you're trying to get the message out.
Right. It's, we try to use, again, as with a text phone, everything's kind of visual. So that's why we decided to use the crushed up car and some big signs to try to steer people away from it. So it's, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from the car being there and having it simulated that we've cut them out of the car and that kind of thing.
And
so
it's at Loretto Elementary this week?
Well, it's next week it's going to be Loretto. This week it's actually going to be at Sandalwood. And then for the whole month of November, we will actually be at First Coast High School. You can go to jfrd.com. We have a downloadable flyer. We've actually had some student groups download it, and they're passing the word, so it's working good for us.
Over the past couple of years, nationwide, lawyers involved in 60 for Safety have been going into schools, and in the first year that we did this, across the country reached 50,000 students. The numbers haven't been computed for this past year, but we try to go in there typically in the spring before prom and before graduation to try to get the word out to those new drivers about the dangers of distracted driving in all of its forms, but particularly with these mobile devices. We also have these these wristbands that we have. Melissa, here's one.
Oh, thank
for
you.
that
And
says,
turn on our live video stream at WJCTnews.org, and you can take a look.
It says one texter call can wreck it all.
Yeah.
And that summarizes the topics when you get right down to it. It can take a life, end a life, and change everyone's lives for a long, long time.
Here's an email from Irene. Congratulations to Mr. Hogan and other advocates. This is a good first step, and we at Clay Behavioral Health Center and Kids First of Florida support the enforcement. We have made the commitment to focus on driving, no texts, and no calls. Thanks for that, Irene. Let's go to Marvin in Arlington. Hi, Marvin. Good morning. Oh, we lost that call. How about AJ, also in Arlington? AJ, good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. My question is, does it include emailing, Facebooking, and Instagram? So many people use different ways to message people. I just want to know, does it include those things I mentioned?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Sure.
Manual input, in other words, the typing on the screen or on the keyboard, if it has a keyboard, those are included by the law. So that also includes searching the internet. In other words, any of those kinds of things that are involved with using your hand to make the typing input will be covered by this law.
Okay, let's go to Chris in Jacksonville this morning. Chris, thanks for holding. You're on the air. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I actually love this law. I wish it was a lot stricter. I work in traffic every day. I do traffic signals and everything along the edge of the road with traffic signal signs and everything. And about 2 years ago, I watched my coworker die in the work zone from somebody texting while driving. And in the courtroom, when they came out, they were texting about a TV show from the night before.
Oh, wow.
For over 20 minutes, texting, driving.
Wow.
So
Sorry to hear that, Chris.
That's pretty sad, and it's actually ridiculous. So.
Yeah. Thanks for your call, Chris.
To me, as Mr. Hogan said, it's pretty weak, the punishment, but what you're going to go through in your life, if knowing that something you did cost someone their life, a loved one is gone, that's probably the most impactful aspect of any accident that involves that kind of thing, that it was avoidable. Mm-hmm. There's some accidents that are unavoidable, but to distract yourself and to know that you've caused a loved one not to come home that day that's got to be the aspect of it that I'm sure that nobody wants to go through.
Melissa, when we've over this past year, we've been speaking to groups like Irene's group at Clay Behavioral and others, and we've been making the point to business groups, you're not there in the car to sell insurance, sell real estate, or check in about a variety of other things related to business. You have a single job when you're driving the car, and that's to get yourself safely to where you're going and prevent others from being injured by being unsafe. That's
the problem, isn't it? People see their car today as a sort of rolling office.
And
they think, oh, I've got some time here. I'll catch up on some things while I'm driving.
And car manufacturers right now are getting into very dangerous ground because they are making arrangements with these companies to put more and more of these potential distractions there. And they're going to have to figure out how they approach it and whether the devices are disabled, so that they cannot be used while the vehicle's in motion.
I know there's some car that I've seen that have actually similar to a mouse that's installed right there at the shifter. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so as time goes and somebody dies in an accident, then you have a personal injury, you have wrongful death, that's going to be investigated. That relates not only to potential criminal prosecution, as I mentioned earlier, but also liability in a substantial way as a result of the fault of the driver.
Here's an email from Mike. It's one thing to talk on a phone while you're driving. It isn't safe, but it's 100 times better than texting. I personally would be okay with a device that flattens the texter's tires, but this is a good start. Let's go to Oscar in Jacksonville. Hi, Oscar. Thanks for holding. Good morning. Okay, Oscar, give us a call back. Ed in Orange Park is on the line. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hi, good show, Melissa.
Thank you.
As always. Yes, just to clarify, I think you touched on this before. The hands-free devices and such things such as navigators and the Bluetooth, those are not. Those are okay at this point.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ed. And here's a text. Here's a tweet from Jay. Does the new texting ban include hands-free, voice-activated texting like using Siri on your iPhone?
This law does not cover it. The problem is, and people need to be aware, the brain does not multitask. It does one thing or it does the other. When we've been before these large groups, 200 people, 300 people, and you ask this question, these are adults, you ask this question, is there anybody here, because they all will have said that they use their cell phone in some way, so even Bluetooth, who can say that they've never had the situation where they wondered, did I miss my exit? Did I miss my intersection?
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss the driveway that I was looking for? Even though they were using Bluetooth and hands-free. It is distracting, and it is dangerous.
But it's still legal.
It is legal, at least under this statute, unless the officer concludes that the person was driving carelessly. The officer makes a determination in his own view as to whether there was careless driving, because that can result in charges under those circumstances.
Let's go to Nancy in Intercoastal West this morning. Hi, Nancy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for this program. Great program.
Thanks.
I'm so happy about this law. However, I do find it very toothless. I think when you really get into the nuts and bolts of it, it's not very serious. Our background is we moved back to Jacksonville after living in both Ontario, Canada, and Tokyo, Japan. And the laws for texting and driving and for just using your cell phone are so severe that people just don't do it. I mean, we're talking a couple $100 fine, points on your license. So my question is, what can we do as residents to have this law really have more teeth in it? Because right now it's really not that severe for getting caught.
Thank you for that call, Nancy. And in fact, cartoonist Ed Hall posted his cartoon on our First Coast Connect Facebook page just now. It says, "Welcome to Florida and the toothless new texting ban." And it shows a police officer asleep as a texter drives by. But, you know, it was tough to even get this passed, wasn't it?
It was, but and it took 5 years, something like that, for that to occur. But Senator Audrey Gibson here in town just sent out a press advisory the other day. Senator Maria Sachs has already developed a new bill that will be presented in the Florida Senate in order to expand the regulation of this type of activity.
When you hit people in your pockets, that's when people start. I know Georgia has a super speeder law. If you're over a certain miles per hour, it's an additional $200. So when you start raising those fines and affecting people's pockets, it'll definitely raise their attention.
And a quick follow-up from a listener. What about GPS devices? What about Garmin devices? Does the law regulate the use of apps on smartphones? Lots of questions.
If you are digitally manipulating the device, then it is covered, and therefore, if you're reaching up to that GPS device and making a change, the reason that we first got involved in this was a lawyer in Philadelphia. He and his wife lost their daughter who was crossing in the intersection as a pedestrian and was hit by a person manipulating the GPS. It's covered because you're typing.
Anything typing, in other words, you want to avoid.
Yeah, I'd be curious. You know, people will have little brackets to hold their phones, you know, and I guess an officer could actually see them actually dialing. So it could be far-reaching.
Let's take one more call. Alicia from Glen St. Mary. Good morning, Alicia.
Hi. I'm listening to your show Wednesday, early afternoon. I was driving into Jacksonville to my doctor's appointment on the 10 because they take the 10 everywhere. And I'm going eastbound, and next to me is the big, WJCT, the News for Jax van. And I look over, and the lady that's driving is texting. And I was going to honk at her, but then I thought, no, you honk at her, she's going to look up and crash. But I was just, apoplectic because I thought, how can someone who's, racing to the scene of anything or just driving, news media van be texting someone on the 10, which is always, there's always construction happening or the gardeners or whatever. So I thought I'd call in and share that because I thought I had seen everything. The texting thing drives me nuts because, nothing is that important that you can't wait till you're, standing still or in your office or something. So I thought I'd share that with you.
All right. Thanks for that, Alicia. By the way, full disclosure, they are our news partner. And it was legal last week. It's not legal this week. But go ahead, Wayne.
these things have crept into our lives. People just feel that they're a part of them. It takes a while. Lawyers who you would think should have known better. I've done it. Others have done it. It's one of those kinds of things. But as you look more deeply into the risks that are involved in this, as you learn more about it, you change your behavior, and this law may help get the word out.
That's the long-term goal.
And it truly has. I mean, these phones have become such a huge portion of our lives now. I'm constantly on them with emails and texting, and it's something that makes our jobs a whole lot easier. And that technology has really come around really fast. And so now it's the time to step back and go, well, what are the impacts of us using these devices? And again, it's a shame that it's going to take that long for it to be truly where we can change a behavior. But, if you just come ride with a firefighter one day and see the stuff that occurs due to some of these devices being used, it's hope it'll change your mind. I know we can't do that broadly, but it's definitely impactful to people's lives when that kind of stuff occurs.
Randy makes the big point there. I mean, when it takes somebody's life,
it's huge.
Yeah. So again, if you're just joining us, Florida's new law bans texting while driving, and it goes into effect tomorrow. You can learn more at jfrd.com, also at the Terrell Hogan Distracted Driving Awareness Campaign on their website at terrellhogan.com. Wayne Hogan, Randy Wise, a pleasure as always. Thanks so much for sharing this with us.